Today I'm going to be reading chapter 3 to you. So, where we left off at the end of chapter 2 was Ralph had just fallen off the bedside table and he was falling into the garbage pail, or what they call the waste paper basket. So, today our chapter is chapter 3, Trapped. Even though Ralph woke up feeling sick and dizzy, his first thought was of the motorcycle. He hoped it wasn't broken. He sat there at the bottom of the wastebasket until his whirly feeling went away. Slowly and carefully he went to stand up. He stretched each aching muscle and felt each of his forelegs to make certain they weren't broken. When Ralph was sure that he was just battered up, he examined the motorcycle. He set it upright, rolled it back and forth to make sure the wheels were still working. One handlebar was bent, and some of the paint was chipped off the rear fender, but everything else seemed all right. Ralph hoped so, but there was no way he could find out until he figured out how to start this engine. Now he ached too much to even try. Wearily, he dragged himself over to the wall of his new metal prison. He sat down beside the apple core against his aching body. He leaned back against the waste paper basket. He closed his eyes and thought about his poor Uncle Victor. He, too, had landed in a metal waste paper basket, jumping there quite by mistake. Unable to climb the sides, he had been trapped until the maid came to empty it out into the trash. No one knew for sure what happened to Uncle Victor, but it was known that trash in the hotel was emptied into an incinerator. Ralph felt sad, remorseful, thinking about his Uncle Victor getting dumped out with the trash. His mother had been right after all. His poor mother, gathering crumbs for his little brothers and sisters, while he, selfishly that he was, sat trapped in the bottom of this trash can. And his only escape was waiting to get thrown out like an old gum wrapper. Ralph thought sadly of his comfortable home in the mouse hole. It was a good home. It was untidy, but it was at least comfortable. The children who stayed in room 215 usually left a good supply of crumbs behind. There was always water from the shirts hung to drip dry. It should have been enough. He should have been content to stay home without venturing out all the time, looking in the world for excitement and adventure. Outside in the hall, Ralph heard footsteps. Matt the bellboy saying, "These new people in room 215 and 216, somehow they got the idea there's mice in this hotel. I just opened the window and told them the management wouldn't stand for that." Ralph heard a delighted laugh from the second floor maid, a college girl who was working for the summer season. "Mice are adorable, but just the same, I hope to never find any in the rooms I work in. I'm afraid of them. There's two kinds of employees at this hotel. Regulars, none of them ever young, and the summer help, who were college students working during the tourist season. If you don't like mice, you better stay away from that knothole in room 215, added Matt. The sound of voices so close made Ralph more eager to try and find an escape. "No," he shouted in his voice echoing in the metal chamber. "I won't have it. I'm too young to be dumped out with the trash." In spite of his aches and pains, he jumped to his feet. He ran across the waste basket floor and leaped against the wall, only to fall flat in a heap. He rose back off the ground again. He tried again. There he was on the floor of the waste paper basket a second time. It was useless, just useless. He didn't have the strength to tip over this basket. Ralph was not a mouse to give up easily. He considered his problem for a moment, and then he rolled the motorcycle over to the wall of the waste paper basket. Then he seized the apple core and by the stem, and he dragged that over to the motorcycle. By putting his shoulder under the stem, he managed to raise it up, standing on its end side. It was too heavy. Ralph was so disappointed. But when he stopped to think it over, he saw that even if he could manage to get the apple up on top of the motorcycle, it still wouldn't be high enough for him to get out. Bruised and defeated, he dropped the core and decided that he might as well be thrown out with the trash. Well, he might as well do it on a full stomach. He took a bite of the apple. Felt a little better. It was the best food he'd had in days. Juicy, flavorful, much better than that crumb he had had the other day from a cracker. He took several more bites and settled down to a hearty meal, saving the seeds for dessert. Two ants appeared at the rim of the wastebasket. "Go away," Ralph said crossly, because he did not like to eat food with crawling ants all over it. The ants left as quietly as they came. When Ralph had eaten his fill of the apple, he curled up beside the core. He only hoped that someone might happen to drop a Kleenex over him. It was bad enough to be carried away in doom in a paper basket, but to be carried to one's doom by a shrieking maid was unthinkable. There was one tiny ray of hope. If someone did happen to drop a Kleenex over him, he might have a chance to jump and run while the maid was tipping over the basket. The thought that the boy was sure to miss his motorcycle started to get into his thoughts. He was stuffed and exhausted, and he fell asleep.